What is going on, guys? John here for you. Back again with more content on the Gravely. So as you can see, I've got a couple things out here that I'm working on. The problem right now, as you guys can see, I've got it hooked up. 13 volts. It does absolutely nothing. So I'm playing around with the meter, and what I've found, this battery's flat dead. It's probably at least 8 years old, if not 18 years old, so I don't know, one of the two. But there's your starter solenoid, and it comes down off of here through the starter solenoid to the starter. Now I had the meter, had the negative hooked up to the negative clamp right there on the jump box, and then I had the positive, and I was over here probing things. This is a negative ground system, 12 volts. I've got 12 volts going to this side of the starter solenoid. I've got my key switch down in here, that plug right there. I got 12 volts going to the key switch. I had 12 volts going to this terminal on the starter, but that was with it grounded right to that cable. So if you look over on this side, there's the machine ground. As you can see, it's seen better days. So what I'm probably going to do, I'm only filming on my phone right now just to kind of keep you guys updated on what's going on. I don't have the full camera. But I'm probably going to go ahead and remove that ground, clean it up, and put it back on, and then we'll see if we can get it to crank for the first time, because currently it is dead in the water. Now I got 12 volts, like I said, going to the starter, but I don't think I have a good ground on the machine, because just picking up a ground off that cable there is not the ground coming off the machine. So I'm gonna try that and we'll see if we can get it to crank.
Maybe the last.
Alright guys, so here's what's going on. Did some more troubleshooting with this thing here. As you can see, I removed the, not that solenoid, but that solenoid. And I went, cleaned these battery terminals a little bit, and what I did was connect these two directly, bypassing the solenoid altogether. I know what I could have done was do the screwdriver trick where you take the screwdriver and you go like this between the terminals. I wasn't getting anything from the starter when I did that, so I decided to ditch the screwdriver trick and remove the solenoid altogether. I did install this solenoid, which I know is the wrong solenoid. It's one I just had laying around. Not sure if it was good or not, but it's one I have. And I was getting the same reading, and the weird reading I was getting was 7 volts at the starter, no matter what position the key was in, so that was odd. But what we ended up doing, my dad helped me with this part, because I needed multiple hands and wanted his advice. I turned the key on, and ran power directly from the battery through the cables here to the starter. And at the terminal right here in the starter, I had 12.6 volts. That was with this right here and the ground up in the ground cable. So I was getting a ground through the machine because obviously I was getting a complete circuit and was able to get a reading. But it leads me to believe that this starter is no good. So the next step I'm probably going to do is, it's kind of getting late in the day, I'm probably going to go ahead and clean this machine up. I have a video on cleaning it. I got a neat machine I'll show you here recently that will make do a good job of cleaning this old Gravely up. But I'm going to go ahead and take the starter off. We've got a guy at my work that rebuilds them. I'll probably take it into him and have him go through it and make sure that it's top notch. And I'll probably source a solenoid. If you guys know of a place that I can get a solenoid for one of these things, please leave a comment down below. I'd love your advice on that. If you think there's something I missed, you know, I'm definitely open to tips or tricks, but seeing that I have 12 volts going to the starter leads me to believe it's the starter. I believe this machine is sat for, well, I know that it's sat for many years, but that's what I'm thinking. So that's where we're at, guys. I'll go ahead and get the starter pulled off after we clean it. The next video you'll see on this thing is me cleaning it. I'm actually going to be using this machine over here. This is my new steam cleaner. This machine is not new. I got it used. I need a little bit of tender loving care. It's an electric steam cleaner. There's the pump over on that side, an electric motor, and it's got a solution tank here and the water tank there, and it's kerosene burner, burns kerosene to heat the water, and does a fantastic job of melting off grease and a whole bunch of other things. So I'll be using this guy to clean the gravely, and yeah. Anyways, guys, that's where we're at. Thank you again for watching. Got any tips or tricks for me, please leave a comment down below, and see if I can source a solenoid for this thing. I like to just replace it anyway, but we'll go from there. Alright, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Okay, last little clip for today. I did pull the starter off. It's just these two bolts right down here that will go through the bottom of the starter. I got my wire right there. And this is more for my records than you guys. However, got the solenoid off, as you saw. And just so that I can remember, this wire goes on the top of the solenoid. So if the solenoid's mounted in here, where'd it go? Sorry about that. The solenoid mounts in here like this, right? Like that. And on the solenoid here, this top one is the battery positive and the key switch 12-volt feed. That side, excuse me, that side terminal is that little claw signal wire that goes on there, and that bottom big wire down there goes on this terminal if it's mounted in there like that, to be able to reattach the solenoid. I'm going to replace the solenoid. The starter does turn over, but very reluctantly. It's quite difficult to turn. So I really think this thing is